Hey there. Welcome to my channel. I'm Solomon, and I'm here to share with you the wisdom that I've gathered and continue to gather in my life, hoping it adds value to yours. If you want to check out my work, my website is in the description box. And if you want to support this channel, do hit that subscribe button. But otherwise, thanks for tuning in, and hopefully you get something out of this.
Welcome back to the Wisdom Podcast. This is Solomon, and I have with me a very, very special guest, Martin Dicerone.
I thought you were referring to someone else.
Yeah, I was, but then I looked at you and I said I might as well pick you. Okay, Martin. So
What a
this is
professional setup you have here.
thank you. This is my usual studio. You see, holiday season, so we have the lights up and everything. So. No, just kidding. By the way, for the audience, we're at a squash gym. And actually, let's talk about how we got into squash. This is our second week playing. Martin is much better than me. It's actually very frustrating. I lost again this week. And one set, I think, was just like 11-1, 11-0 almost.
What can you say, you know?
Yeah.
I used to be into squash before, but it was only the food. Now it's the sport. So
I don't even think you've had
no,
squash before.
I think it's a sign of our decline, you know, because we're going from football to squash is a sign of our decline. But it's fun.
Speaking of football, okay, so Martin, you grew up in Argentina.
Yes.
Okay, you see the jersey. So tell us about what's life like growing up in Argentina.
Well, you know, life it's a very peculiar place because it's a beautiful country. I really love it. This is my home. Some people have very different opinions about the country, but for me, something that really, you know, was like a critical juncture for me was the years leading towards 2001 and actually 2001. Because back then there was a huge political and economic crisis in the country that affected the country as a whole, you know, my community, but also my family in particular.
Okay.
So that was the year that for me pretty much determined many of the things that happened afterwards in my life.
Okay.
So back then, my dad had lost his job, as many other people in the country, to be honest. But for him, perhaps because he was a bit older than most of my friends' fathers, he had really difficulty finding a new job. So that kind of like created a cycle of several years in which a lot of different things unfolded, and for me, it really determined, you know, my interest in life right now, what I want to do, and also the way I grew up back then. Yeah.
Okay. Were you very close to your dad, or like were you more close to your dad or mom?
So it's hard to tell because back then I think I was closer to my mom when I grew up, but you know, when I was 11 years old, my mom passed away, unfortunately, and then therefore I only had my dad for a few years until I was 16. When I was 16, my dad also passed away.
Okay.
So yeah, I think initially probably I was closer to my mom, but I was so young that I don't really remember that much of the details of the daily interaction. And then, of course, with my dad, although the relationship was a bit complicated because he was going through a lot, so sometimes it was challenging. Yeah.
Okay. And you have siblings, right? You said you have two brothers, right?
Yeah, I have two brothers, so we are three. Technically, I'm the youngest one. One of them is 11 years older than me. Yeah, so currently I'm working for the World Bank. So it's common when you work there to rotate locations once in a while. So between 2020 and 2024, I was working in Nigeria. Technically, I moved there in 2021 because of COVID. I couldn't move. So physically there, I was a total of 3 years, I think. So yeah, it was a really interesting experience. I learned a lot. Now in July, I came back here. So yeah, I'm happy to be back too.
Yeah. And you know, it's a big accomplishment. I don't think I've told you this because we don't usually encourage each other or give each other, as they say, our flowers as much.
True.
And so one of the things, you know, we're both. So Martin and I went to the same program at Princeton. It's called SPIA now, but it was called the Woodrow Wilson School. Thank God for the name change. That took all like 3 cohorts of individuals fighting for diversity, equity initiatives, and getting that name change for obvious reasons.
For my time there. Yeah.
Right. I think it was your class that initiated it as well. So that was really inspiring. So like I think it's our stories because we live in the day to day, right? And we're focused on always the next thing. Okay, now I accomplished this. What's the and that's really what led us to be. We're kind of overachievers in the sense. That's what led us to be in the positions we have now, right? But when you pause and reflect, it's really your story is a very inspiring story, right? To be first gen student, first person family to go to school, right? To work at the World Bank, a very prestigious institution, right?
Yeah.
Went to a very prestigious grad school,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then also like living in DC. And Martin, we won't talk about your professional accolades, but you know, he looks like a squash player, but during the day he's actually a very important, savvy, and amazing educational consultant and expert, subject matter expert.
You know, being at the place where I am today, having gone to Princeton, now working at the World Bank, for me, is something that I described as at some point it was unthinkable, then it became impossible, and then it became a possibility, and finally a reality. Now, why do I say that it was unthinkable? Is because, you know, growing up where you grow up.
Wow, that was deep. That was, I have to, that was so deep. I have to write that down. I like that link. Wait. Time out. Sorry. I know this is serious moment, but wait. You said at some point it was unthinkable, and then it was impossible. Then it become a possibility, and then it became a reality. Where did you get that from? Because I know it's not original.
It's not.
You thought about it just now.
No, I've been saying it for a while.
Okay.
To be honest, because you know, why was it unthinkable? Because growing up where you grew up, it doesn't even cross your mind, you know, that you could go to study at a university like Princeton or work at. It's not that you think, oh, it would be nice, but it's impossible. It's just that doesn't cross your mind. It's not part of the universe of possibilities for you
because you've never seen anybody.
Nobody around you, you know. And to be honest, back then, I had never heard about that university. I was like, what is this? And he told me, well, it's like a very, you know, it's like a very good university, solid in terms of academic training, etc.
Where is it? In Buenos Aires?
It's in a city called Victoria, to the north of Buenos Aires.
Okay.
So, you know, because that person told me that, I applied. It was a writing, an essay contest, you know. And interestingly, I didn't win. So I was like, okay, you know, I tried. I had very little time to write to because he told me kind of like last minute. I didn't win. But then I received a call from the director of the political science department back then, and he told me, you know, you didn't get the first place, but we think you would be a very good fit for the university. Why don't you come and talk to me? So I remember I went there, my cousin took me there with his car, and it was like a 2.5-hour journey. We got lost because we were not familiar with the area, etc. But we finally got there, and this place was, even just the infrastructure was like amazing, you know. So I was like, wow. So we started talking to this Professor Marcelo, was his name, and he told me, you know, we really think you would be a good fit, whatever. And then he took me to the admissions office. So in the admissions office, they told me, oh, you know, you could do this admissions course, and then I was like, okay, let me try and just do the admissions course and then see how it goes. So I started doing the admissions course, which meant that back then I was working in the afternoon. So most days I stopped working, and 3 days a week I would go after school to this other university. So I would take a bus and, you know, travel like 3 hours, commute for like 3 hours, and then do the admissions course until 8 p.m. and come back home like another 3 hours. So that for a few months. Then I took the admissions exam.
Wait. So you said 3 hours to take the admission score? What's that?
No. Basically, I would go to school in the morning.
Right.
Then I would take a bus for 3 hours. Then I would have the admissions course for like 3 hours. I think it was math and literature.
So it's the prep course for the exam. Okay.
And then another 3 hours to go back home. So I did that for a few months, and then I took the exam. And then they called me saying, oh, you know, you are admitted. And,
wow.
And I was like, great. But for me, it's really impossible to afford this university. It's a private university, you know? So, and they were like, oh, no, don't worry, because we gave you 75% scholarship too. And then I was like, oh, I'm very grateful.
Yeah, that's tough. Even
75% for me, it was really impossible. I mean, I didn't have any anything. And they were like, oh, I'm sorry, well, we understand, you know. So, and I remember the person called me. His name is Carlos. So, and then 2 days later, I get another call from Carlos, and then he's like, you know,
now it's 85%. Yeah, imagine. Okay, what about 85% negotiation? Okay.
No, he was like, back then, the rules were like, he was like, I'm not allowed to give you more than 75. That's like a hard stop that we have. But what we can do is you can work in my office, and instead of paying you, we discount the other 25% as salary of the.
It's like a work study, essentially. Yeah, perfect.
And then I was like, wow, you know, that's a big opportunity. But why am I saying this? Because
did you live there? You lived on
so the first year I was still living in Rio de Janeiro, my town.
Okay.
So I was commuting a lot. It was a bit crazy. The second year they offered me housing too, so I started living there.
Okay.
In fact, they built some dorms, and the third year I started living in those dorms.
Okay.
So, but anyways, why do I say this? Because I remember going to a talk given by graduates of Harvard, Argentine graduates from Harvard, and I went with one of my friends, Mercedes, and I remember, you know, I heard these people saying, oh, we went to Harvard, whatever, you can do it. And I remember leaving that conversation, and I was walking with Mercedes, and I was telling her, oh yeah, she was, wow, this is nice, I think I'm going to do it. And I remember telling her, yeah, this is very nice, but it's impossible, you know? So that was the day that it wasn't unthinkable anymore. It was impossible. For me, it was like, this is just not possible to do this, but the idea had been planted in my mind, you know? So after that, you know, I always say that when something becomes part of your universe of possibilities, then, you know, you can, with the right help, achieve it. But the biggest constraint is that for many people in the world today, we just don't have aspirations that are compatible with the potential of those people, because you are limited by what you see surrounding you, you know? So that was the day that it stopped being unthinkable and it became impossible.
Yep.
And then later on, you know, it became possible, and then a reality.
Certainly not in the American societal framework, but even within my own Ethiopian community that lives in the U.S., it's not as close, or there's not as much unity as those Ethiopian communities that live in maybe more strenuous, dire economic, social circumstances.
I think it's a combination of things, right? One is that here is a more individualistic society, for sure, but also that perhaps people tend to stick together when the situation is challenging, and that's when you really see who is part of your community and who is just there for the good times, right? Because many people are there for the good times, but there are people who are there in the moments that you really need them, even, you know, without expecting anything. And for me in particular, it was really a few people that in very particular circumstances, they also helped me with transitions. Transitions are critical because, you know, it's like a tree that determines if you take the branch that will still give you potential for many other opportunities, even though they might seem unthinkable at that point, but you're still on that branch. Or you take the other branch that perhaps, you know, it's a very different and more negative future for you.
Right.
When you're making that decision, especially when you're a kid, sometimes you don't know, but having someone that helps you or that shows you, even just shows you that there is another branch, I think it's invaluable.
Yeah.
Might change later.
Yeah, I thought I was going to be a professional soccer player.
Yeah, I don't know why he said that, but I play football with him. He's good, but not professional level.
12, I was different.
Yeah. So anyway, for me, for example, as I said, I knew always that I wanted to work on something that would help people, but that really is a broad. It's really a broad set of options. So you have to be willing to also be flexible and take advantage of the opportunities that the process gives you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's why things that were before unthinkable might become thinkable. If you are just predetermined by the options that you know, then you will also not take advantage of opportunities that might come later your way.
Right. Yeah, you can't be rigid about the possibilities, because if it was that way, we wouldn't be where we are now. Even like we wouldn't imagine living in DC. And I'll actually share a little bit about the cool work that you do in the education sector.
So right now I work in the education global practice of the World Bank. So basically we support countries with education projects to improve their learning outcomes, both in terms of access to school and also actual learning in the classroom and outside the classroom. And also later on when people become a bit more mature, develop their skills to be able to find productive jobs, right?
Wow, this is amazing work, Eddie. I'm pretty sure young Martin is looking at you amazed, thinking like, wow, the dream that I had as a child of helping other people is becoming a reality. You're somebody that your family absolutely looks, probably the entire community looks at you as a very dependable, inspirational figure. And we certainly, even the community of friends that you have here, were always impressed by you. Not like all the time, but maybe a third of the time. But thank you so much for jumping on this talk and making the time. And I just want you to know I'm very proud of you as well. You're an inspiration even to me, and I'm sure a lot of people who are watching are going to be very thankful to have had access to this as well.
Yeah, well, thank you for inviting me to share my story. I'm also looking forward about learning more about your story. But yes, thank you also for being part of this community that I have here in Washington, because even though, as we said before, this is a very individualistic country, me in particular, I feel very lucky because I have a very strong community, and that includes you. I also want to give a shout out to my other friends here, my partner Hajira. So I think I'm very, very thankful. Yeah.
Yes. And some of those people, inshallah, God willing, will have them on the podcast. Thanks for watching, and hopefully this was helpful to you.
Bye.
Cheers.